BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Black Box Ned 88 on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And welcome to our monthly Zodiac Killer Q&A for the month of October. It's a beautiful time of year here in West Virginia. I hope you guys are having an equally good time. I love the month of October, Halloween and all. I mean, all the houses in the neighborhood are getting decorated, as well as the changing of the leaves and cider, pumpkin spice coffee, all of that. So it's a good time. But yes, indeed, we do a monthly Q&A session where I read off your questions and comments about the Zodiac Killer, and then we have a short discussion. So the first thing I would like to do is drop a couple announcements. We've also started a discussion series on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. It's called Open Discussion, Zodiac Killer Hoax Theory, Open Discussion. It wasn't planned on being a series. Originally, I was only expecting to do one upload, but there was a little bit of a malfunction in part one, and I thought, well, I can't just leave it like with a type of hanging ending or something like that. So I thought, let's do a part two, but then that turned into a part three, and now it's going to turn into a part four. So if you haven't subscribed yet to Black Box Online Radio, now's a good time. You can follow along with some of these Zodiac Killer uploads, as well as anything true crime and all sorts of other subjects. The other things we have coming out this week are going to be on our series on JFK and the Mossad. We've been exploring some of those things, as well as another one on the Dream of Mortal Life, which is a book discussion that we've been doing here on this channel. So let's get to some of your comments and questions about the Zodiac Killer. First one comes to us from John Eisenor. And John, if you're listening to this, am I pronouncing your name right? I think you said I missed it once. Is it Isenor or Eisenor? And John writes, "Keep up the good work. Big fan. Are you going to do one on the comic book possible connection, where Zodiac was into pop culture at the time it seemed?" Yes, absolutely. We're going to do something about that in the future. I was thinking over a few possible ways in which we could explore this connection, but looking at some of these Zodiac connections to various comic books, and it really is shocking when you look at these murders that happened in 1968 and 1969, as well as some of the other possible events like Sherry Jo Bates in 66 and Kathleen Johns in 1970. And what you can see is that the Zodiac definitely was influenced by comic books, and we are going to do something about that in the future. I'm not exactly sure how we will present it, but I think that it's too vital to ignore. And overall, when I said I'm not really sure how we're going to present it, overall, it seems that we might just do a comprehensive one on literature, talking about comic books, talking about the Mikado again, as well as Detective Story Magazine. And we haven't mentioned the film Bloodlust from 1961 recently. We did do one upload on that in the past, but if you haven't seen the film yet, it's a sort of a retelling of the most dangerous game, where you have five people that end up shipwrecked on an island, and a man is hunting people for sport. But two of the victims bear a striking resemblance to Mike Mageau and Brian Hartnell. It really is quite shocking. But we have done some of those things in the past. We might just talk about how the Zodiac was just really into literature. And as John writes here, it's also pop culture. Even if you look at something such as The Exorcist Letter, which came out in 1974, I mean, the Zodiac is talking about what? The film The Exorcist, and he says it's the most amazing satirical comedy he's ever seen, or something to that effect, paraphrasing, but that's the general idea, calling The Exorcist a satirical comedy and such. The Zodiac was very much into pop culture, and I really like exploring the possibility of how you have a person, or possibly a group of people, either acting out fantasies from comic books and movies and theater, as we said, the Mikado, talking about performing arts. Someone is trying to bring these things into real life. And one of the points that I've been talking about since 2019 is, I was like, it appears that either someone or a group of people were looking at the concept of the Zodiac Killer, and they were trying to recreate a new serial killer legend. I could even say create a new serial killer legend, but I use the word recreate because we're talking about someone must have been studying crimes of the past. Most definitely, the Zodiac had familiarity with the death of Sherry Jo Bates, Riverside, 1966. We'll be doing an anniversary upload for her on October 30th of this year. But also things like perhaps Jack the Ripper, the Texarkana Moonlight Murders of 1946, and there could even be other crimes that we'll find extraordinary similarities with. So, going on to our next comment, it comes in to us from Junior Pink, who says, Presidio Heights, talking about the Paul Stein murder on October 11th of 1969. A lot of things going on in the month of October. Presidio Heights, exclamation point. Crime, exclamation point. The 1960s, exclamation point. It's the Beverly Hills of San Francisco. Well, I mean, that's actually kind of good to keep some things in context. And there could just be all sorts of crime going on in Presidio Heights in 1969. And we were mentioning some of this during our discussion on the Great Zodiac Killer hoax and the open discussion series that I mentioned. When you want to talk about how was Paul Stein's murder, the murder of the taxicab driver on October 11th, made to look like a taxicab robbery? Was this murder meant to either fool people into thinking that it's supposed to look like a taxicab robbery and or it was a genuine taxicab robbery and the Zodiac took credit for it? The things that go against that are, well, Paul Stein's shirt was mailed in, a piece of the bloody shirt was mailed in. But the other thing to say is, absolutely, it was made to look like a taxicab robbery. Why do I say that? Because it was a real taxicab robbery. The wallet was stolen. That is what the definition of a robbery. And that's an overlooked detail. Or, I mean, that's almost just like, is the glass half full or half empty, more or less? People mostly talk about how Paul Stein was murdered, but the fact that the wallet was stolen, that makes it a robbery. The question is this a genuine crime that was committed by a taxi cab robber who then walked away, and then we get into the Zodiac hoax circles? Or did the Zodiac killer actually want to murder Paul Stein and take the wallet and then just walk out into the night? Some of the things that would point toward this being genuine Zodiac activity, no hoax, would be that you have somebody, as we said, acting out the fantasies that they would hear about in various forms of literature, making a dramatic exit. The Zodiac came to life in the fall of 1968, December 20th, still in the month of fall before the winter solstice, going dormant for the winter, launching this crime spree during the summer, continuing it into the month of autumn, and then exiting into the night, making a dramatic theatrical exit before Halloween, before Samhain. I mean, the Zodiac seems to have a lot more childish imagination, or even teenage adolescent imagination, than is really talked about. And when you look at the four different crimes, one of the things we might talk about in the future is something called the Four Horsemen theory. We've done uploads in the past on the multiple killers theory, the group murder theory, group murder versus a single perpetrator. And there's one way of labeling it, calling it the Four Horsemen theory, meaning that four people committed the Zodiac crimes. Maybe a fifth person wrote the letters, but four people committed the crimes. And if you look at the Zodiac symbol, you'll see a circle with a cross going through it, dividing it into how many sections? Four. Four horsemen of the apocalypse. And when we did our upload, Zodiac Killer Clues on the Mikado, there's all of this talk about execution. And not to give too many spoilers, but it's like, there's this thing about they need to have an execution in the city, otherwise the status of the city will be demoted to that of a village. They need to show that they can keep up with standards and such. So, you're protecting and saving the world by destroying it, that type of thinking, more or less. I think you can get the general idea. So, this Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse theory is almost tying into that as well, which is also a literature reference in itself. But the next comment that I would like to go on to is from Zio FIFA. Zio, is it Zio or Zio? Zio FIFA says, "Hey, I love your Zodiac videos and your narrative. Thanks for making them." Hey, you're welcome. Which suspect do you believe to be the Zodiac? Could there be two men? What is your theory? Yesterday on the channel, I mentioned that we were going to be doing the Q&A today, and this question just gets right to the heart of the issue. Zio FIFA, thank you for this one. And what I can say before I answer is, if you would like to hear me respond to this question in 25 minutes, we have an upload in the description box called My Personal Theories on the Zodiac Killer, which just tells how I got, involved with this type of material and the step-by-step discovery process. So if you'd like to hear everything answered in extensive detail, that will be available in the description box. The best way you can support this channel is just by listening to some more of our content and never asking for any money, but you can always like and subscribe if you like what you hear. But the best thing to do is just listen to some more of our material. Once again, our upload, Zodiac Killer, My Personal Theories, is available in the description box. But I'm going to answer the question now in a very short way. I would say that in 2019, I was almost certain that this was a group asking the question, could there be two men? What is your theory? In 2019, I was looking at all these different things about the different crimes, Lake Herman Road, Blue Rock Springs, Lake Berryessa, Presidio Heights. There are just so many differences among them. And I was thinking, this feels like the psychology of multiple people. I did a whole upload that on that just talking about Zodiac Killer, Z psychology. But then I learned about the possibility of Don Chaney being the Zodiac Killer. Don Chaney is a Zodiac Killer suspect. Big shout out to Drew Beeson for everything that he has compiled about that. And I've been following along with the Zodcast. And I just have to say that I don't know if I've ever heard a clearer narrative on how one person could have committed all the crimes, like explanations, just how this could have been set up, as well as someone who has connections to almost every major player in the Zodiac Killer mystery. Don Chaney was just kind of lurking in the shadows the whole time. But if you haven't heard the Zodcast yet, Zodcast, the Zodcast on Drew Beeson's channel, I recommend that one to you. But aside from Don Chaney, I would say that he is on par with an individual named Hal Snook. And what I would say about Hal Snook is he's the prime suspect in the hoax theory as being the letter writer. Once again, in the hoax theory, you would have one person writing letters, taking credit for murders that he did not commit. That's why it's called the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. Although we're going to say something really big about that in our next upload, Zodiac Killer hoax theory open discussion part 4, which will come out soon. I can't guarantee when, but sometime in the near future. And if you're listening to this in the far, far distant future, we have a series on the Zodiac Killer hoax theory called Open Discussion. Please feel free to check out any of the uploads that are available. So what I would say about this one is that I'm really divided between Don Chaney and Hal Snook. And when I say Hal Snook, we don't necessarily know his exact level of involvement. He could have been just the person writing the letters, but I really like the angle of Hal Snook being the Zodiac Killer himself. And I mean, like, being someone who was involved with the narcotics department, and he could have had just learning the knowledge of how the other narcotics departments in the area working, of course, talking about Napa County, Solano County, and then San Francisco, learning about how all of these different places would work. And then he could have betrayed the confidential informants at Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs, and then committing the murder of Paul Stein in Presidio Heights and walking away. And you can even pull up some things about Hal Snook on Google and look at him with a pair of glasses, which have been drawn on there. It's like an illustration, but he does greatly resemble that composite sketch. However, the thing is, though, I do not believe for a second that Hal Snook was the perpetrator at Lake Berryessa, that he was the person wearing that costume that stabbed Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Shepard. I mean, we're talking about less than 1% chance. There's always a chance, right? Or quantum physics or something like that. But I do not believe that Hal Snook was the perpetrator at Lake Berryessa, the stabber. So you're instantly going from one person to two people. So I'm really torn between some involvement of Hal Snook, and I can't even tell you what that would be. Maybe writing the letters and doing some of the criminal co-conspirator work. That's what we were talking about last time. Or Don Chaney. But I really have to say that with the Don Chaney narrative, I don't think I've ever heard a clearer explanation about this is how one person committed all of these crimes, and this is how he blamed it all on Arthur Lee Allen. This is how he fed false information to Robert Graysmith. It really is quite remarkable. So I'm going down one of those two pathways, and I really can't say any more than that. I wish I could just tell you, okay, here's who the Zodiac Killer was. This is how he did it. This is how he committed the crimes. This is how he wrote the ciphers, and this is the secret meaning of the ciphers. And sometimes I get a little bit frustrated that I don't have answers to those questions. I don't know what you guys feel, but this could even be a challenge question. Do you ever just get frustrated that you feel like you're so close to the truth, but then sometimes you have to step back and reevaluate things? Our next comment comes to us from Michael McJenkins, who has a comment about the Zodiac Killer hoax theory. It can't be a complete hoax if there were dead people involved who were murdered, regardless of whether it started that way or not. And this is one thing that I even talked about to Thomas Henry Horan when I interviewed him. And if I could just paraphrase that, because I thought of something recently, like maybe like a month later after I had talked to him, I was like, oh, I should have said it like this, one of those things where you wish you could go back in time. However, the thing that I was thinking was, if you have something like a Bigfoot hoax, and like some guy is wearing a costume in the forest pretending to be Bigfoot, that means that it's not really Bigfoot. It just means that it's meant to look that way. So when I first heard the word hoax in the Zodiac killer narrative, I was like, impossible. Real people were murdered. Everybody thinks that. I mean, when I would think of a real murder hoax, that would mean that, well, people didn't actually die. And a lot of people take exception to that. It's not only Michael McJenkins, it's also Michael Butterfield, as we learned last time in the hoax killer discussions. He also greatly challenges that. But, well, we're going to say some more about that in the future. And next we're going to go on to Shaper Art, who has left a question on our upload, The Murder of Cecilia Ann Shepard. I disagree with your comment about Deer Lodge Prison. It's possible that the Zodiac killer was an inmate there, and was there for a prison riot in 1959 as well. And the Zodiac claimed to have killed 2 prison guards during a riot, and that isn't likely random information he would just make up. Is it very specific? He fully intended to kill both of them. He called in to report the crime as a double murder, and if his intent was to intimidate the victims with what he was saying, it would be far more terrifying at the time if he simply informed him that he was the Zodiac killer. Both the previous sets of murders were well known, so it would have been far more terrifying to face the Zodiac killer rather than some escaped convict from Deer Lodge, Montana, no one had ever heard of. I definitely have to say that this is a very insightful comment. Once again, thank you to Shaper Art. Talking about the Zodiac at Lake Berryessa saying, I escaped from Deer Lodge Prison. And when we did the transcript reading of that, and I think you can hear this in the David Fincher film as well, like the Zodiac and Brian Hartnell exchange this name twice. What was the name of that prison again that you escaped from? Deer Lodge Prison in Montana. Where is that coming from? This is just a giant unanswered question in the Zodiac Killer mystery. One reason is because we don't know who is wearing that costume at Lake Berryessa, and the significance of the costume. We're talking about the hood that has like the clip-on sunglasses and with the Zodiac symbol on it. But what we can say is that I definitely think that Shaper Art is on to something here when he says that that is just an odd thing to say. If the Zodiac killer expected to murder both the victims, why would he say something fictitious? Gary Stewart, of all people, hypothesized that the Zodiac was just saying those things to get a desired result, because he thought that if he said, I'm escaped from Deer Lodge Prison, I'm on my way to Mexico, that he wouldn't put them into panic and they would just comply with his request. But wouldn't they be more terrified if he said, this is the Zodiac speaking? And they're like, oh, this is the guy that they were talking about in the papers and such. I definitely think that would be more terrifying, but I'm not 100% sure, but was the Zodiac actually in Deer Lodge Prison? Well, we could go down the Donald Lee Booyock pathway and pull up some more of that Kevin Robert Brooks material, but I really have to say that I'm really not sure how this fits in. And the other point we could make is, we could say that, what have we been talking about up to this point? 18 minutes. The Zodiac Killer was somebody who was really into what? Fantasies. Is this just trying to say something that came out of the trenches of imagination? I'm not 100% sure, but I definitely think there is a little bit of food for thought in that. And R1 Sonic, that's our next comment here, has something to share. I always believed that the Zodiac was in full character mode when he was killing, even down to the way that he talked to the police on the dispatch, who said it was like he was reading or it was rehearsed. Even the clothing he wore and the way he walked. I think that in his mind he was playing a different character each time he killed, and he wanted to embody the character almost like a Hollywood actor. Wow, I mean, that could be something there. And as we said, it's also possible that, based on the influences of the Mikado, that the Zodiac could have been trying to arrange the 4 canonical crimes as a 4-act play, like a 4-act stage play, how it has, a story that's told in 4 different acts. It's possible that that type of thinking was involved, no matter what angle you're going at. Multiple killers, one person, group murder theory, hoax theory, that this is how the architect of this, because I do believe that there is one central mind behind this. To go back to that one question, what do you think about this? There is one central planning mind because for the longest time, it appears that we have one letter writer, and then perhaps maybe around the Melvin Belli letter, or even before that, we have a changing narrative that seems a little bit different. But I think that is an excellent comment, so thank you, Sonic. And we will probably just do one more over here. And somebody asked the question, the Zodiac has the Wheel of Death mentioned frequently on the Halloween card that says, by rope, by knife, by gun, by fire. Halloween card, October, great month, right? By rope, by knife, by gun, by fire. And this is written by Colonel Reb, first saying, giving you respect for your comment. By rope, by knife, by gun, by fire. The only one missing is by fire. Any unsolved arsons in that time period? Well, I think we can look this up. And this is actually on our upload to the Zodiac Killer Murders, Sherry Joe Bates, and yeah, I think he's asking about 1966 in Riverside. We could investigate that, and we could also look at unsolved arsons in the Bay Area, 1968 and 69. But I think that we have another response to this, and I really have to give a shout out to Rick Hansen, who has his own series of videos out on the Zodiac Killer. If you'd like to check out his channel, Rick Hansen, RickHanson, he has some good videos out as well. But he left a comment on one of our uploads here on BBOR when he was saying that gun and fire can go together because of the word gunfire. The victims who were shot, gun plus fire equals gunfire, so that could have been taken together. And the reason why is because at Lake Berryessa, the victims were tied up and bound by rope and by knife at the same time. Although the person only wrote by knife on the car, but rope was used. So we have gun, fire, rope, knife. All right, so that is something there. All right, well, I think that's going to wrap up our October Zodiac Killer Q&A session, but I mean, you guys leave some excellent comments, and very frequently these things turn into two-part things. So I can just say thank you to all. I mean, we wouldn't do these types of uploads without you guys in the audience. You are awesome. And if you like what you hear, you can always like and subscribe. And I will see you guys on Instagram for the bonus podcast. And please look out for some of the new things that we're going to be doing on JFK and the Mossad. And once again, the Dream of Mortal Life. And of course, the open discussion on the Zodiac hoax theory. Please share anything that you have in the comments section below. And see you on Instagram once again. Until next time.